Media.
Welcome back to Behind the Bastards, a podcast about the worst history in all of people. Or people in all of history, whichever is accurate. I don't know. I randomly put words together based on a predictive text algorithm, much like an LLM, except for I use this collection of bones with runes inscribed on them. And that's how the podcast comes to you every week. Thousands of bones with runes inscribed on them that I pick at random.
Great.
Kava, how would you like me to read some random bones that might be about the Shah or not?
Let's do it. Let's roll the bones.
But first, do you
Also, welcome back to the show.
Yeah,
Kava.
I was going to say, Kava's here.
Sorry.
Yes, thank you again for having me. My name is Kaveh Hoda. I am a physician. I'm a gastroenterologist, and I'm also the host of a podcast called The House of Pod. It is a humor-adjacent little medical podcast. We look at wellness grifters. We look at what the Maha community and the administration is doing to our current healthcare, and have a little fun when we can with it. So you should check it out anywhere you get your podcast. After this, listen to this. This is more important than afterwards. Listen to me. You'll probably like it or your money back.
Have you done an episode about our mutual enemy yet?
Which one? I feel like we have a number. RFK Jr.? I've done a number on RFK Jr.
No. Our mutual enemy that we talk about on the side often.
We did talk about, can I say his name? Is that okay?
Of course.
I don't like to give him more airtime than he needs, but Vinay Prasad.
Yeah.
I like him. I like him. He doesn't like me. I have no problem with him, but he's been involved in a lot of aspects of medical care recently in the country that I've disagreed with. And we actually did talk about him recently in one of our more recent episodes. So yes, you could listen to the podcast and hear the episode is Influence versus Evidence. And we talk about kind of what's happening out there right now in our current healthcare administration.
Excellent.
Not a fan of his.
It's mostly good, right?
Oh, I mean, 99% great.
Everything's fine.
Everything is great. Everything is really, if you're really into communicable diseases, this is a good time.
Excellent. I love communicable diseases. And my favorite communicable disease is knowledge.
I was going to say it. I swear to God, I was going to say it.
Let's spread some together. Yeah.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
You're listening to a podcast. So you're doing something else too, like maybe scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving places you like without thinking you'll get them. Because that's what house hunting has become. But Redfin isn't built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. Redfin agents close twice as many deals as other agents, which means when you find a place you love, you've got a real shot at getting it. Redfin helps turn saved listings into real addresses. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
Do you want to find a stress-free way to buy your next car? Start at CarMax and shop your way. And if you want to browse with confidence, get pre-qualified online with no impact on your credit score and shop cars within your budget. From luxury cars to family rides, CarMax has options for almost every price range, including more than 25,000 cars priced under $25,000. So, hey, want to get started? Just head to CarMax.com for details and get pre-qualified today. Want to drive? CarMax.
Peace to the planet, Charlemagne the God here, and listen.
We are back.
The Black Effect Podcast Festival is back in Atlanta on April 25th at Pullman Yard.
Yeah.
And the full lineup is nuts. We got the Grits and Eggs Podcast, Deontay Kyle, and Big Ice Cup Cat. We got Club 520 with Jeff Teague and the gang.
Yeah.
Don't Call Me White Girl. Mona will be there. Keep It Positive, Sweetie with Crystal Renee. We got Reality with the King with Carlos King. And yes, Drink Champs will be in the building. Okay. Plus, you know we're going to have a lot of guests, so you need to join us. And we got the Black Effect Marketplace, the Picture Podcast, and everything you expect from the Black Effect Podcast Festival. Tickets are on sale right now. Go get yours at blackeffect.com/podcast festival. Don't play yourself, okay? Pull up.
So, in the 4 years after the October Revolution in Russia, Persia had been the site of bloody and constant conflict between Britain and Russia. Again, there's this brief period in World War I where they're kind of fighting together against the Ottomans in Persia, as opposed to fucking with each other. And then we've got our revolution, and the Bolsheviks are fighting the whites, and Britain goes right back to fighting Russia, right? Now, I guess it's a little different in that they also have allies who are Russians in this case, too. So they're not fighting all of the Russians, just most of the Russians. And basically, the kind of broad strokes of this conflict are the Brits see Persia because they've already got a good base in the area and they get resources there. They have interests there. They have a lot of forces that they can get there. It's a great springboard. It also borders Russia. So it's a great springboard for them to use as a base from which to support the White Army in the Russian Civil War, right? The Soviets, meanwhile, don't want Britain doing that because it's bad for them, right? So the Soviet Union annexes chunks of northern Persia, and they create the Persian Socialist Soviet Republic, right? There's it's more complicated than that, right? There's and obviously there's local and like within like Persians who are communists who are part of this and like want to. There's partisans and stuff. It's much more complicated than all that. But broadly speaking, you've got the Brits and the area they control in Persia that they want to use as a base to support the White Army in Russia. And then you've got this chunk of northern Persia that is aligned with the USSR that is itself, at least nominally, Bolshevik, that the Bolsheviks are using as a base, right? And there's fighting betwixt the two. Now, the Qajars are still, like that Shahdom, that line of Shahs is still in control, technically, at the point at which all this is going on, but they fail to exert, they don't have any power, right? Like the Shahs are useless in this conflict. Yeah. They don't really have any ability to influence what the Russians are doing because the Bolsheviks had just killed their Tsar, so they're sure as hell not going to listen to some Shah in Persia that they never respected to begin with. Right. Meanwhile, the Shah, like, personally, like the guy who is Shah now is that dude who was like 12 when he came to power and has been ruled like a regent was running things. And there's like a triumvirate of guys who aren't the Shah, who are mostly running things in the Persian central government. And so during this period after World War I, the central government's like bleeding provinces and big chunks of the army just kind of disappear into comical puffs of smoke because they didn't really want to be in the army. And when push came to shove, they're like, nah, I'm going back home. Yeah. No, thank you. Yeah. So the only meaningful force opposing the Soviets are the Cossacks and the Cossack Brigade and their British backers. Again, it's a little more complicated than that, but that's the broad strokes. Now,
but the Cossacks at this point, the Cossacks are not reporting back.
Yes and no.
So that's the part I don't understand.
Well, it's weird because again, Russia's not everyone in Russia is a Bolshevik. There's a civil war, right? So you've got a bunch of Russians or white Russians who support at least not the Soviet Union happening, right? Generally, they support some sort of return to the monarchy or whatever, right? So and a lot of like Cossacks support the white Russians, like because the Cossacks had been the Tsar's shock troops. A shitload of them wind up in the white forces, right? And during this period of time, the Persian Cossack Brigade is still led by a Russian officer. Like it's still a Russian colonel who's in charge of the brigade, but that Russian's a white, right? So he's siding with the British in their efforts to help the whites against the Bolsheviks. These are very messy wars. Does that make sense?
You know, as someone who is currently living through the Iranian diaspora dealing with the Iran War, I think I can understand a little bit of the complexity of this, and this is it's all starting to make sense in a historical context to me.
It's fucking messy. This whole period, because it's not just Britain that's intervening in the Russian Civil War. Like the United States has forces too. Like there's a whole Allied intervention force. This is number one, barely talked about anymore, but really complicated. Everything that's going on in this period of time. Right. I'm really smoothing the edges down just because we can't get into too much detail about all of the shit that's going on. But that's why the Cossacks are on the side of the Brits here, you know? So this is not 1919, 1920, 1921. This is not when domino theory doesn't really exist in the form it's going to exist, but conservative reactionaries have already started sussing out the basic tenets, right? They're already telling people, well, look, if Persia falls to communism, where will it stop, right? Now, obviously, Great Britain's real interest here is that if Persia falls to communism, they're not going to get cheap oil anymore for the Navy. And that's the real problem, right?
Love that oil.
Their other problem is they have to keep troops in Persia during this whole period of time, like their own guys. The Cossacks alone can't hold shit. If they want to know that oil's safe, they have to have their own dudes there, and that costs a lot of money. So in 1921, Great Britain's two main interests in Persia are stop it from falling to the communists, and if we didn't have to keep our soldiers here to do that, it would sure be great, right? Those are their primary concerns. Now, I want to take you back in time. I know I just was talking about the Russian Civil War era to talk a little bit about how things within the oil company working in Persia evolved over the early 1900s up to 1921, right? Because we didn't really talk about that so much in the last episode, and it does matter. So in 1909, that entrepreneur, Darcy, and the company that he partnered with had transferred their rights, basically had gotten in bed with another company because they needed more money to do the infrastructure necessary to get oil out of Persia. And this new company is called Anglo-Persian Oil, or APOC, APOC. Remember these names. It's going to be real interesting what happens to Anglo-Persian oil in the modern era. Now, the way in which APOC functioned from 1909 to 1921 does a good job of showing how dysfunctional the central government of Persia was by this point. How bad the Qajar monarchy is at actually governing the country, because APOC doesn't deal with Tehran at all. They don't talk to the Shah. They ignore the capital completely because their oil wells and shit aren't near the capital. And their oil wells are in the territory of a bunch of there's a mix of sheikhs and Bakhtari Khans, which are different, basically tribal level leaders who actually control the territory where they're drilling for oil and transporting oil. And so the oil company is why would we talk to Tehran? They don't have any power here. They can barely keep the capital. I'm going to make deals with these local guys. They have the guns and the labor force, right?
Yeah.
The capital's not going to do anything but take bribes from me. Fuck them.
Yeah.
So that shows you how weak the government is at this point in time. As a matter of fact, when the deal between APOC and these different tribal groups was concluded in 1910, the company illegally imported 1,000 laborers from India without talking to anyone in the Persian government. They take 1,000 Indians and make them work in Persia, and they don't ask anybody in the fucking government. They don't talk to the first. There's no visas for these motherfuckers.
They just don't look. They just don't. And they never do. They never look at Persians as real people.
No,
they just
not at all.
Can't. This colonial mindset never goes away. I mean, maybe now it's gone away, but it was so intrinsic to who they to who they were as people that they just couldn't see the people living there as being worthy or warranting even that kind of discussion.
Yeah, it's fucking nuts. And it's really so as an idea for how messed up their attitude towards Persians is, period. Part of the agreement with these local sheikhs and khans is we'll hire 1,000 locals to work in the oil plants, right? But they illegally start bringing in a bunch of Indian workers to do most of the work. They aren't going to hire any more than the minimum they have agreed of local people, right? I want to quote again from that piece Shireen Brysack wrote for the World Policy Journal. In what became a chronic grievance, APOC gave Britons and Indians the best jobs, relegating Persians to menial roles. Foreigners occupied the best houses, claimed membership in the exclusive Persian club, and sent their children to schools in segregated cantonments. There were even fountains marked not for Iranians, feeding the cycle of enduring resentment that was to characterize subsequent relations.
Wow.
Basically, they're not giving, like, they'll let you, like, transport shit, but they don't give you anything. They're not getting, like, the most dangerous jobs, but they're not getting good jobs either. They're not getting anything that pays well.
Right.
And in the areas where the company is activated, there's segregation against the indigenous people who live there. Like,
and they're so smart. They're never going to let the Iranians that are there get to higher positions where they can actually learn the oil industry, where they can actually learn how to do this. Because heaven forbid, if they were to, they would run it themselves. Right. So purposely keeping them in the dark.
And then imagine there's segregation in your country because a guy came in last week and is like, nah, you don't get to use the same, like, water fountains because we're getting oil out of here now. Like, if it's just a thing that happened a week ago, like, how that would piss you off. Like, what? You guys just got here? Like,
we are so easily offended as a people. I have to tell you. This is like
anyone would be in this. Yeah, this is infuriating.
I've seen Iranians get pretty offended for much less than having a segregated water fountain. So this is nuts.
Okay, because some fucker just comes in a week ago and is like, "Oh no, this isn't your place anymore. There's oil here. This is British property."
Yeah.
So as I noted in the first episode, in 1914, the British Parliament had voted for a proposal pushed by Churchill to fuel the Royal Navy with Persian oil. As part of this deal, the British government purchased 51% of Anglo-Persian oil, ensuring it would remain an all-British company, which is, again, them saying, we're not going to let the locals run anything. We won't even let them know how to run anything. This is always going to be our shit. So by 1921, northern Persia is a Soviet satellite, and guerrilla fighters are advancing on Tehran, which basically can't defend itself without foreign help. There are the Cossacks, which are primarily made up of Persian soldiers, and they are functional, but the government can't even pay them. Right? Like, the Cossacks are being paid entirely by Great Britain by this point in time. And Great Britain has to send her own soldiers to occupy large tracts of Persian territory in 1918 just to stop a total Bolshevik victory in the area. Now, one of these Cossacks getting paid by the British in 1921 is our friend Reza Khan, who at that point has been promoted to colonel, right? This is Machine Gun Reza. So the Khan...
From stable boy to Machine Gun Reza.
That's right. Still can't read, but he can shoot people.
He can shoot that gun good.
Khan and his men and about 5,500 British colonial troops are holding the line against the communists, right? While British Foreign Secretary Curzon drafts what becomes known as the Anglo-Persian Treaty. This authorizes the stationing of British veterans to build a functional army for the central government. Basically, Britain's going to send experts so that the central government can build an army that actually works, right? That's not just the Cossacks. We want there to be a functional army here, so we don't have to keep ours here. So we're going to send experts in. And we're also going to put a bunch of investment money into Persia to build railroads and reorganize the economy. All of this is to keep the oil flowing. None of this is for the benefit of regular Persians. The army and the railroads and the economy are also that this is a stable place for the Royal Navy to get its fuel from, right? Now, this plan is to be paid for by a £2 million loan issued by Great Britain, who would collect customs duties to pay the loan back directly from Persians. In effect, British tax collectors are now directly taxing Persian citizens to pay for the things that they're doing in order to make sure Great Britain has continued access to basically cheap oil, right? They're taxing
wildly
Persians directly now.
So insulting.
It's really insulting.
I'm so angry. The more I learn about this history,
it's
a
really
good thing I know. It's a good thing I love your colleague James Stout so much, because sometimes I learn about the things the British do and I get so mad. But he's so lovable. And then I remember, okay. It's okay. It's okay.
We are Americans. It's not like we can get like we don't have that much of a leg to stand on these days.
True. I'm so confused. I'm torn between two groups of terrible things.
That's right. That's right. It's the Team Jacob or Team Edward of colonialism. So yeah, Great Britain's taxing Persia directly, and if the British aren't directly running the government, most Persians sure as hell think they are at this point in time, right? At the end of World War I, the Bolsheviks had published a bunch of documents that they'd seized from the Tsar's palace, revealing secret wartime pacts. And one of these secret wartime pacts was Britain offering Russia the Dardanelles in exchange for giving Britain Persia, right? So this comes out, and people in Tehran, educated Persians, are obviously like, oh, so like they just bought us, basically. They bribed the Tsar for us, and they think they own our entire ass country now. And this helped spawn massive resistance to this treaty that Secretary Curzon has put together. Initially, Curzon is not all that concerned. He states, the case will be settled by cash, and then he proceeds to organize a £131,000 bribe to the three-man triumvirate governing Persia on behalf of the Shah. These three guys agree to the bribe, and Curzon, being a genius, is said to have declared the treaty a great triumph, and I have done it all alone. Like,
great branding.
He's like, so we're gonna tax these people to build an army to protect our oil, basically, and to keep them oppressed. And the people are like, we don't like that. And he's like, but I bribed 3 men, solving the problem forever, all on my own. Perfect. Unfortunately for Curzon, that damned free press I mentioned earlier got to work, and they reported on the fact that Persia's growing triumvirate had sold the country for a song. Next, per Brysek's article, the treaty was blocked by the Majlis, and 3 successive Persian prime ministers fell. So basically, 3 successive governments failed to gain whatever they need to do in the parliament to be able to govern as a result of resistance to this treaty, which gets it blocked in Tehran. Now, this causes chaos because the British this is fucked up of them, but also British money and guns is the only thing propping this government up at the time, right? So when the treaty gets blocked, things aren't just like good, you know? This is a bad treaty.
They could sell some of the stuff from that Peacock throne.
Maybe they could sell the Peacock throne.
Yeah.
That looks like it's worth some money. Yeah. Yeah, so chaos envelops the capital city. And back home in London, the Lords of the Admiralty have real reason to fear that they might lose their hookup to cheap gas. Now, Curzon had basically been like the fuck around and pretend we care about international law guy. Like, he's bribing these dudes, but he's trying to frame it as like a legal treaty and an agreement between states. And since Operation Bribe 3 Guys failed, all eyes turned to one of the top-ranking generals in the Royal Army, Field Marshal William Edmund Ironside, who was referred to as the Lord Ironside, a name George Lucas would laugh at you for giving to a character in a fictional story. Like, the Lord Ironside,
it's over the top.
Really?
You're like, okay, we get it.
It's a bit much.
Yeah.
He was also nicknamed Tiny. William Tiny Ironside?
That makes it a lot better.
That's really funny.
Tiny Ironside. That's pretty amazing.
It's gotta suck, too, being born with that cool a name and, like, knowing you're going to be a military leader, but also being a little guy. Like, because people are going to call you Tiny. Like, Tiny Ironside is just less cool than the Lord Ironside.
With that name, your options are limited. You're like, if you're an Ironside...
You can only be in the military. You can't blame him for joining the army. Like,
or you could be an actor from Starship Troopers, and that's it. Those are your 2 options.
That's it. Yeah. That's right. And unfortunately, Starship Troopers had not quite been invented yet. We had barely harnessed the technology to create Paul Verhoeven at that point. You know, he was still gestating, I believe. So the best way I can describe the Lord Ironside physically, if you're not looking at, the video version of this, because most people listen to it because it's a podcast, the best way I can describe him is that he had the face of a man who didn't understand why other nations beside England should exist. Like, that's how look at this guy's face. Like, that is a face of confusion that there are other countries in the world.
What are they doing? Look at them with the browns and the
Why?
stove.
Other countries.
The smells coming off their food. Oh, what is this? The seasoning
Spices.
I'm tasting in the
My
food.
God, it's not all Moors there. My British accent was going everywhere there. I think you're more consistent than me.
He's got Lord Mountbatten energy.
Yeah, he does. He has strong, the IRA should have blown up a boat this guy was on energy. That's what I'll say about this fucker. Although he has bad luck with planes, not boats. So Ironside had been made commander of the Allied intervention force in northern Russia during the Russian Civil War, and he had been reassigned to Persia in 1921. And basically, as soon as he arrives in country, he sees Colonel Khan, or Reza at the time, right? And he spots this guy, and he's like, this dude looks like a good person to charm and put in position as like a military strongman. That might be what happened. Or Reza might have looked at this guy and immediately been like, all right, this is the British dude I need to charm, right? I don't actually know which is truer. There are two different versions, one of which is that Ironside manipulates Reza because he needs a guy. The other is that Reza manipulates Ironside because it gets him what it wants. I think probably both are true. Both guys see each other as useful, right? That said,
the typical narrative about Reza Khan is that he was not extraordinarily bright, not well read, as you mentioned, but he did have a sense for power. And
he's really good. Yes.
Yeah, and he could root out sort of a little bit of, this dude seems to be like a good, ship to hook my, whatever. I don't know the saying, hook my ship to or whatever. What's the saying? Sail to? I don't know.
A good guy to like hitch his boat to or whatever.
That's right. Something like that.
Tie his horse to. I don't know. But I think this is good. That is a good point about like. I try to make this point often about what intelligence is, because there's a bunch of climate scientists out there, and any one of them is smarter than Donald Trump in a million ways. But Donald Trump is smarter than all of them at how you acquire power in a democratic society and use it for your own benefit. Now, part of why he's smarter at that is that he has absolutely no moral scruples whatsoever, but he's completely negated many people's life's work who are much smarter than him because he has that kind of intelligence. And Reza Khan is also that kind of guy. He can't read. He's not super bright in that way, but he's incredibly intelligent socially, and he is very good at making every British guy he meets love him. And that's all that matters in Persian politics at this point in time. And that's why he wins, right?
Hitch my wagon
to. I can't believe none of us could fucking figure that out.
Boy. Sorry.
And there is evidence that the Lord Ironside, Tiny, is charmed by Reza. He describes him upon meeting him as, quote, a man and the straightest I have met yet, the real life and soul of the show. He doesn't mean that in like a sexual sense, but it is funny to be like, that's the straightest man I've met yet. Almost as like, and I've been fucking my way through this country too, so I can tell a straight one.
It's funny too, because like, when Reza Khan is raising his son, Mohammed Reza, which goes on to be the Shah that people think of as the Shah in modern times.
People say the Shah, they're talking about this guy's son. Yes.
When he's raising him, there's like no emotional connection there of any kind.
Absolutely not.
He treats him as a subordinate because he was one of these old school dudes who was under the belief that showing your son affection would make them gay. That was that was his whole bag.
Absolutely. Well, and again, to be fair, his mom abandons him after her husband dies when he's 8 months old to be like, I'm going to try again with a new family. Sorry, kid.
Yeah.
Good luck.
His uncle probably wasn't great either. I mean, if we're like, I'm sure his uncle was not a super enlightened guy,
This kid's first healthy relationship is with a machine gun. Like, it's not shocking he becomes the man he is. You know who else had a healthy relationship with automatic weaponry?
HelloFresh, I hear they are...
Yeah, they love them. Oh, my God.
Love them. Can't get enough of them.
They own a lot of machine guns, a shocking number. Why? We can't tell you. Buy their products.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
Grocery prices are skyrocketing, but True Nature Meats beef carne asada delivers zesty flair for under $6 per person. Juicy, pre-cooked with Sonoran marinade, ready for tacos or plates. Eat in 2 minutes, vibrant restaurant-level taste at home. Exceptional taste, honest value. Visit TrueNatureMeats.com. Code FREEMEAT for 20% off plus free New York strip, Texas smoked brisket, and Mediterranean chicken with code FREEMEAT at TrueNatureMeats.com.
It's the new me and it's the old them.
Everybody's on their journey, and your journey is different to theirs.
This Women's History Month, the podcast, If You Knew Better with Amber Grimes, spotlights women who turn missteps into momentum and lessons into power.
I think coming out of where I came from, I'm from the Bronx. I think I grew up really poor. I didn't know that then because I very much use my creativity to romanticize life. And I'm like, my mom did a really good job of like, you step back and you're like, whoa, I don't know how we made it. So a lot of my life was like built out of like survival to get to the next place. Like my drive, my like tunnel vision of like, I gotta be better, I gotta achieve this was off the strengths of like, I wanna make a better life for us.
If You Knew Better brings real talk from women who've lived it, unpacking career pivots, relationship lessons, and the mindset shifts that changed everything. Listen to If You Knew Better with Amber Grimes on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Usually on This Podcast Will Kill You, we talk about the diseases, infections, and biological threats that can make us really sick.
But right now, we're doing something a little different.
We're stepping back and looking at what the human body needs to keep going.
When you consider what we know about sleep in humans, there's one rule that comes out. We are predictably unpredictable sleepers.
We're talking about why sleep works the way it does, why our bodies don't follow neat rules, and why modern life makes rest so hard to come by.
The second half of our series takes us to the digestive system with a multi-part series on what happens after we eat. Okay, I just have to say that all of my favorite words apparently are digestive words.
Sphincter, peristalsis, duodenum. It's fascinating, it's funny, and it matters so much more than you think.
Episodes of our new series run from January 20th through February 17th, with new episodes every Tuesday on the Exactly Right Network.
Listen to This Podcast Will Kill You as part of the Exactly Right Network on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And we're back. So we just let that happen, huh? Okay, cool. Wow. So, yeah, good stuff. So Reza Khan, as we've noted, was, not a bright guy in a lot of ways, but he's very well liked by British people, particularly by the Lord Ironside, who promotes Reza to brigadier general and makes him commander of the Cossack Brigade in 1921. He sits down with the newly minted general and the British officer acting as paymaster for the local Persian forces, and he tells both men Britain won't stop him if he seizes power. Basically, he sits down with these guys and he's like, look, if you want to take control of the country, we won't do anything as long as you don't depose the current Shah, right? That guy's technically our friend. So I'll keep Ahmed Shah is the current Shah's name. Keep Ahmed Shah the Shah, but you can do anything else you want, right? Basically. And Reza's like, hey, bro, sounds cool to me. I'll take that deal any day of the week. And he takes that deal, right?
Is that the 12-year-old? Is it the Ahmed Shah is the 12-year-old Shah? Or are we on to a different Shah now?
I mean, he starts as 12. He's not 12-year-old anymore.
I mean, I recognize that people don't stay the age that when you meet them,
Yeah. But yes, he is that kid. That's how he gains power initially, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah. So Ironside is like, hey, man, if you want to be in charge, just don't depose the Shah. We'll back your play. And then he goes, claps his hands together, wipes them off, and leaves the fucking country for Egypt. He's just gone, right? He sets up the dominoes and he fucking bounces. So not long after he leaves, on February 20th, Reza marches a column of 600 men, 600 Cossacks, towards the undefended capital. All other military forces and the local police were ordered to stay inside and keep their goddamn mouths shut. And the coup that follows isn't totally peaceful, but it's like a fairly minimal amount of bloodshed for a coup d'etat, right? But it is a coup d'etat. Now, depending on which historians you like best, Reza Khan is either a bold opportunist who executes his own coup with a little help from his British friends, beside their promise not to intervene. They don't do much other than not stop him. And the other way to look at this is that Reza is a total pawn of the Brits, a chess piece maneuvered into position by the Lord Ironside to block the Reds and keep the Royal Navy fueled. I'd never want to argue for a reduced British culpability in all of this, but if Ironside was the mastermind here, he was a very hands-off one, because as soon as he leaves Iran for Egypt, he's grievously wounded in a plane crash, and he's recuperating in the hospital while the Khan overthrows the government and takes power, right? Princeton historian Richard Ullman writes, "It is idle to speculate upon whether or not he would eventually have come to power had Ironside not singled him out, but it is clear that Ironside and his British colleagues were largely instrumental in placing Reza Khan in a position to bring about the coup d'etat." And I think that's accurate. Reza Khan doesn't need much help from them other than backing out, right? He's got the guys and the guns to do this, and he has a skill for building an army. He's going to very effectively get more guys and more guns because he doesn't have enough at the start of this to control much more than the capital, right? Once he takes power in the capital, he still has a lot of shit to do. And there's a years-long road before he becomes the Shah. He's not the Shah after this coup. He's technically the war minister for Persia, which is a new position that makes him the commander-in-chief of the military, but also lets him basically pick his own prime minister. And here's how he looks at the time, by the way. This is like how he looks when he's minister of war for the country. Great mustache, it must be said.
Great hat.
Everyone was wearing hats like that back then. I don't know why, but they do look. That one does look comfortable.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I love a hat.
Pretty baller Cossack hat. Look at that.
Yeah, those like shakos or whatever don't normally look that cozy. Like his looks like it's knitted together out of wool.
He does
Yeah.
this.
Nice.
He's got this like sneer sort of thing down pretty good. Like smirk.
Yes,
Pretty good.
The sneer of cold command, that Ramses
Mhm.
look. Yeah, he's got it knocked down.
I love that
So-
hat. Stunning.
Yeah,
My people's eyebrow game has been strong forever.
those brows, powerful.
Facts. Facts.
So all Reza needs to do now at this point is end the war with the Soviets and defeat his numerous local rivals, most of whom are major tribal leaders who had gotten, these are the guys that the oil company APOC is paying, right? Like those local leaders are his main rivals for power, as well as like the Soviets. So Great Britain sends him a friend right around this time to help him out, now that he's newly the Minister of War. And this friend is a British diplomat, Sir Percy Lorraine. Now, Persia is not seen as a great place to be a British diplomat at this point in time. It's kind of like a career death sentence because things have not gone great for a couple generations of British diplomats here. It's been messy for them. Percy's not the empire's best. He is smart, but he's also awkward, and he's bad at being social or at editing his own dispatches down into something people would want to read. His coworkers nickname him Ponderous Percy, which is a huge, huge burn for British people.
God.
So
I love it.
Basically,
These names are so
Ponderous
British.
Percy and Tiny Ironside.
They just get more British as the story goes along.
Right. So this shy bookworm dude is supposed to be like the liaison to Reza, and he immediately falls for this handsome and heroic-seeming fucking machine gunner who's just made himself the Shah in all but name, right? Just like Ironside. Yeah. Reza sums this guy up and charms him immediately. Incredible. And Lorraine writes back to his boss, Curzon. He gets straight to what he has to say and does not waste time in exchanging the delicately phrased but perfectly futile compliments so dear to the Persian heart. An ignorant and uneducated man, nevertheless, he betrays no awkwardness of manner nor self-consciousness. He has considerable natural dignity, and neither his speech nor his features reveal any absence of self-control. So that's how he's described by Lorraine. Mm-hmm.
I have to say, he is in some ways so atypical for a Persian man. From like not wanting to show his kids love to like not using flowery poetry, like especially at this age, every every older Persian man fancies himself a poet. Like the language itself is so flowery. Like you say, like instead of saying "I miss you," you say "My heart tightens for you." Instead of saying like. We wish you were here. We kept the space for you. It's empty. We have all these like flowery little bits of language, and this guy is so like the opposite of that. That's what's so interesting about him. He's so atypically Persian,
and it's both because partly he's only half Persian, right? Like his mom is Caucasian.
All it takes is one drop, Robert.
Probably Armenian,
all it takes
right?
Is one, and we claim you.
Sure, but he's not raised the way. Like, right. He's certainly not raised in a traditional Persian family at all. He's almost basically an orphan, right? Like so he doesn't have, right. And I think one of the things that results in is that unlike a lot of other people who have stuff like art to learn and culture and family that matter to them, all he thinks about is power. It's the only concern in his mind his entire life is gaining and taking power.
Right.
And guys like that tend to be the ones who gain and take power in situations like this. Right. Because it's all they think about.
Yeah.
Cool. Good stuff.
Just like in podcasting in medical school.
Yep, just like podcasting. Yeah. So Lorraine uses what influence he has to convince his superiors to advance Reza enough money to fund an army of 18,000 men. He also argues that Reza should be the one that the British back over several local sheikhs and khans who'd previously worked with Anglo-Persian oil. General Ironside also helped his friend Machine Gun Reza, filing a report with the British War Office that promised Reza would, quote, solve many difficulties and enable us to depart in peace and honor. Basically, if we let this guy be in charge, he'll build an army that works, and we can leave and we won't have to be ashamed. We won't leave like we did Afghanistan, just getting beat out, right? And we can keep getting our oil, right? That's the argument Ironside's making. Yeah. So it takes about 2 years of fighting in the heartland of Persia for Reza to take a hold of this chaotic situation, to beat back his rivals, and to restore a form of order, or take, I should say, power, right, over the rest of the country outside of the capital. Now, the pretense of a constitutional regime still exists, but Reza's prime minister is like, well, now that you're the commander-in-chief, that's a civilian job. You have to retire from your military job and leading the Cossack brigade, right? And Reza's like, no, I'm going to keep my private army. Obviously, you never give up your private army. You never give up your uniform if you want to be dictator, right? That's a bad idea right there.
Yeah, that's right. You keep that sucker on. More medals on it. More and more medals.
Yeah. And once this happens, basically everyone in the government realizes well, this guy's the Shah in all but name. You know? So after he returns in 1923 to the capital at the head of an army that had at least been semi-victorious, Khan was appointed prime minister himself. Now, he's still bound by a pinky swear not to overthrow Ahmed Shah, but somehow Ahmed got the idea that life in Persia might not be safe for him with Reza in charge.
This 6'4" looming monster.
Machine gun lover? Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Just standing around.
So he flees to Europe, where he spends the remainder of his life in exile, right? Now, Reza has, at this point, they've basically made a kind of peace. You know, things have been settled enough with the Soviets that they're not worried about that about communists taking over the rest of Persia. And Reza sits down with the parliament and says, basically, hey, have you guys noticed I have all the guns? And Parliament says, you sure do, Reza. How do you like to be dictator for life? And he says, that sounds dope. And in October I'm smoothing some things over, but in October of 1923, he was appointed His Serene Highness and King of Kings. Although, again, he's not the Shah yet. In fact, Reza debates briefly after this point what kind of government should he impose upon his newly won land. Per the World Policy Journal, Reza Khan had toyed with proclaiming a republic, following the example of Kemal Ataturk, the Turkish soldier reformer he sought to emulate. The King of Kings claimed to be a reluctant monarch, only agreeing to ascend the throne at the urging of the ulema, or mullahs, who thought that conservative Persia would fare better with a Shah than with a democracy. At the time, royal titles were very much in the desert air, hence King Faisal of Iraq, so he chose the Peacock throne. Right? So he picks being a king as opposed to being a president who would have been the same as a Shah. He wouldn't have actually given up power, but he decides, well, I'll just make myself basically king, right? So he's,
it is interesting that he goes and he tries to connect with the Turkish leader and is seeing what's happening in Turkey at this time because
he loves Ataturk. Yeah.
I'm sure he sees a strong guy who's maybe modernizing Turkey at that point.
That's exactly
what he
sees.
To do that, but it seems like, and you'll know better than me, but I feel like he's not the politician to do that. He's not the leader to do it with the same sort of clarity that the Turkish Ataturk would do.
Yeah, no, and he's not nearly as bright. Ataturk was interested in actually building a functional state, right? Yeah. The Shah is primarily interested in getting as much out of Iran he wants to rob it blind, right? That's why he wants to be the Shah. Yeah. And it takes him about a year of badgering Parliament, but he succeeds in convincing them to formally depose the old Shah and make him the new Shah. And almost as soon as that becomes his job, and we'll talk about the actual process of crowning him, Reza Khan changes his name to Reza Shah Pahlavi. Now, this is an auspicious change during the ancient, as you noted, during the Sassanid Empire, which dominated a lot of the Middle East and North Africa, except for the bulk of the landmass of the Arabian Peninsula. That's a lot of the coast. The language that most Persians spoke, it was called Pahlavi, right? That was the term for it. And Reza changed his name, he does this like the reason he does this is what Mehdi Alavi and Atul Singh, writing for the Fair Observer, call a very clever public relations stunt. He's basically making a nationalist pitch to like Persians, saying like, hey, or I mean specifically to like Iranian Persians, saying like, I am going to be your leader and this is going to be your country, as opposed to any of these other groups of people who currently live here, right? Like that's the pitch that he's making.
Pahlavi was great branding. This whole thing was great branding.
Pahlavi.
Changing the name. Then he goes on to, I mean, his son actually goes on to change the name of the Anglo-Iranian or Anglo-Persian oil company to Anglo-Iranian.
Yes, yeah. Well, we'll talk about that. Yes.
Good brand. They're good at branding, especially the father.
It's solid branding. Yeah. It's lasted to this day, some of the branding they did. And there's a lot of this stuff. So in their book, The Shah, Abbas Milani writes that prior to obtaining total power, Reza began playing at piety in front, or really, we talked about this a bit. He'd always kind of been like the enforcer, like religiously, that he'd gained a reputation for that. He likes being in good with the Shiite clergy, and he really ups that during the years when he's like, in charge, but not yet the Shah. Quote, he participated in religious mourning processions, and like the most pious of the mourners, he beat his chest and brushed his forehead and the top of his head with ashes of sorrow and grief. Not long after he was crowned, Reza Shah would change course and begin a carefully planned policy of limiting the power and role of the clergy in Iran. So this is going to be a pattern for him. The people that he needs to get to power, he's going to fuck over fairly quickly. And that does include the clergy. And there will be you can tie the fact that the clergy are in charge in Iran today to his decision to fuck the clergy and some of the things he does as a result of that, right? We're going to talk about all of this. There's really long-reaching consequences to this. But nobody calls his bullshit at the time, right? Everyone's fooled by, not everyone's fooled by Reza's charm, actually. Alavi and Singh note in their piece for the Fair Observer, not everyone bought into Reza Shah's sham. 4 courageous legislators opposed the new Shah. One of them was Mohammad Mosaddegh, who would go on to become prime minister years later. The British managed Reza Shah's coronation using the coronation of King George V as their guide. So you do have people who oppose him, including Mosaddegh, who will talk. Margaret should talk about an episode on her show, actually.
Exactly. So it's pronounced I'll give you the two versions of it. The easy one, and by the way, again, apologies because my Farsi is garbage. Mosaddegh is probably the easiest way with more of a Q sound, but I think it's pronounced more Mosaddegh. It's one of these sounds that's hard for Americans. Mosaddegh. Is with a GH at the end. That would be a perfect, perfect person. I mean, he had some flaws. I mean, but he was one of these heroes that's held up in secular Iran.
I heard his name for the first time mispronounced in songs that were angry about the CIA overthrowing him, right? Or about our government's role in its overthrow, right?
Oh, I'd love to hear that.
But we're not going to talk about him much more in this episode, but I did want to note that not everyone is fine with what Reza's doing. Right. There is resistance. There's very brave resistance. So when he is coronated, as I noted here, the British used, that quote said the British. I'm going to go into a little more detail about what that actually means when it says the British used Reza Shah's coronation, used the coronation of King George V as their guide. I want to talk about what that means. So one of the British people who's in Tehran at the time is a writer named Vida Sackville-West. She is a prominent author, and she's a good friend of Virginia Woolf. And she happens to be in Tehran for the coronation because her husband is a British diplomat. And she kind of inveigles her way into helping to plan the coronation, which Reza sees as both a way to show his continuity with Persia's grand past and to celebrate the coming new modern regime. Now, Sackville-West is not a fan of Tehran, which after nearly a decade of war and starvation isn't in great shape, right? She calls the city squalid with, quote, few pretentious buildings and mean houses on the verge of collapse and little else, which is not nice given that, your government really helped with a famine that killed, half the people who lived in the country. Kind
of contributed to that. Yeah.
London wouldn't look nice if 40% of British people died in a famine.
Exactly.
I'll bet that much.
Right. I can take a lot of criticisms, but when they come from the imperialist forces,
that's not a fair one.
That's just not a fair one.
Nope.
So Vida and the wife of the head of the British legation literally sit down with books about the coronation of King George V, because Reza's people, I should say, are we got to figure out how to coronate this guy. because this is kind of a new thing, because he's not being like the rest of the Shahs. How should it look? And they leave it to the British people, because well, you know how kings and queens are supposed to take the throne, right? You figure it out. And so these two women sit down with these books about the coronation of King George V, and they make notes about, there's all these symbols of power that they handed him. There's all these swords and scepters and crowns and precious stones that mean all these things and have these fancy names that are part of this whole process. And they kind of make their own version of it for the coronation of the Shah. I want to read you a quote about this whole process of planning the coronation from A Very British Coup by Shireen Brysack. But as I read all this, I need you to remember that, again, 7 years earlier, about half the country died of famine. When we're talking about how obscene the display of wealth that this represents really is. As Vita Sackville-West recalled, the linen bags vomited emeralds and pearls, the green baize vanished, the table became a sea of precious stones, the leather cases opened, displaying jeweled scimitars, daggers mounted with rubies, buckles carved from a single emerald, ropes of enormous pearls. Then, from the inner room came the file of servants again, carrying uniforms sewn with diamonds, a cap with a tall aigrette secured by a diamond larger than the mountain of light, 2 crowns like great hieratic tiaras, barbaric diadems composed of pearl of the finest orient. We plunged our hands up to the wrist in the heaps of uncut emeralds and let the pearls run through our fingers. We forgot the Persia of today. We were swept back to Akbar and the spoils of India. Soon, orders went out to shops throughout Europe, but after the intercession of Lady Lorraine, Vita was given authority to order china, glass, cutlery, and stationery from London's royal purveyors. She commissioned red liveries for the palace, modeled on those worn by the British legation's servants. Apropos of the coronation, Vita Sackville-West writes to her friend Gertrude Bell, she and Louise Lorraine have been very busy painting the throne room pink.
It's like I'm envisioning the scene from the cartoon movie Aladdin, where he comes in as Prince Ali Ababwa, and I wish we could talk about that movie for a long time. I got thoughts.
Yeah, boy.
It's so opulent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And this all this wealth that like could have been used during the famine years to maybe help with the famine wasn't used for that. And also there's an opportunity here in this capital that's been devastated of like, well, we need a shitload of cutlery and stationery and china and glass. You could have a lot of that made by people in Tehran, by people in the greater Persian area. No, we're sending off to London. We're sending money out of this starving country to bring in stuff from London. It's just better, you know?
Be a job creator.
Right.
If nothing else.
Yeah. So this pisses some people off too, right?
Oh, really?
Now I want to, I want to talk about how the Shah gets coronated. And here's how the biography of the Shah describes the moment Reza stepped into the hall where he would be coronated. And he's arrived. He's known as a very punctual man. In fact, he's accused often angrily of bringing like the concept of punctuality to Persia, that like Iranians didn't give a shit what time it was before Reza.
Some
like is a thing you'll hear people say.
I'm calling you out, LA. I'm calling you out, LA Persians. Sorry.
But so it's noteworthy that he shows up late as like a power move because he can, right? Quote, at last there was a stir. The doors were opened and the 6-year-old Mohammed Reza, that's his son, appeared in the hall. Behind him walked the procession of the 22 political dignitaries led by the prime minister. They were carrying the many royal accoutrements necessary for the coronation, 3 different crowns, a scepter, 3 swords belonging to past kings, and even a diamond-studded royal bow and arrow. One of the swords belonged to Nadir Shah, a powerful king who united Iran and was reported to have been planning limits on the powers of the clergy. Nadir Shah was also alleged to have attempted a reconciliation between Shiites and Sunnis, and he was Reza Shah's great hero. So he's kind of signaling some of what he's going to be trying to do, right? By what stuff they pick for this. So the Shah's son, after he's crowned, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, was pronounced crown prince. Initially, now that Reza's the Shah, he promises a reign free of religious influence or internal strife. And he promises, quote, European-style educational institutions, westernized women active outside the home, and modern economic structures with state factories, communication networks, investment banks, and department stores. In the words of historian Ervand Abrahamian, right? He's saying, we're going to be a modern country like all those European countries, right? And, you know, there's a lot of good stuff that sounds like in those promises, you know, cut the power of these religious tyrants, let women do more stuff. Sounds great. Roads, sounds good. A lot of that stuff will in fact happen. Now, first off, it's always debatable how much of this is actually, how much of the good stuff that happens has anything to do with the Shah, or is it just stuff he takes credit for? But the other thing that's important to know is that, like, what he does by instituting the most direct one-man rule possible. And this means cracking down on, in many cases, eliminating all of the local leaders, the tribal leaders, who had previously been friends to his British patrons, and doing so in a very brutal way. Ending internal strife means ending any fiction that Persia is a nation of many peoples. And so it was Reza Shah who officially changed the name of his country from Persia to Iran. Per the Fair Observer, Reza Shah's detribalization and Persianization led to ethnic cleansing and genocide. William Douglas, a noted American judge, had the following to note about one community that fell foul of Reza Shah. Lur after lur, that's the group of people, that's the ethnic group, like the tribe that he's going after. Lur after lur was beheaded, again and again. The plate was heated red hot and slapped on the stump of a neck. The colonel started betting on how far these headless men could run. Every man, woman, and child had been killed. Not a living soul was left.
Wow.
This is the kind of shit his soldiers are doing to wipe out any other groups that might be a threat to his power.
Wow.
Like they're beheading people and cauterizing the bodies and then like seeing how far their headless corpses will sprint.
Fucking dark.
Like this is a brutal, dehumanizing crackdown on everyone else. That's a big part of what the Shah does.
Oh my God.
Have we had 2 ad breaks, Sophie?
No.
Okay, great. This is a good time for one.
No, it isn't, but let's do it anyways.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
Grocery prices are skyrocketing, but True Nature Meats Texas Smoked Brisket delivers authentic flavor for under $6 per person. 30 years supplying the finest barbecue joints, chances are you've already had their brisket. Old school smoky tenderness, pre-cooked and ready. Heat in 2 minutes, pile high for tacos or sandwiches, restaurant level at home. Exceptional taste, honest value. Visit TrueNatureMeats.com, code FREEMEAT for 20% off plus free New York strip, Texas Smoked Brisket, and Mediterranean chicken with code FREEMEAT at TrueNatureMeats.com.
It's the new me and it's the old them. Everybody's on their journey and your journey is different to theirs.
This Women's History Month, the podcast, If You Knew Better with Amber Grimes, spotlights women who turn missteps into momentum and lessons into power.
I think coming out of where I came from, I'm from the Bronx. I think I grew up really poor. I didn't know that then because I very much used my creativity to romanticize life. And I'm like, my mom did a really good job of like, you step back and you're like, whoa, I don't know how we made it. So a lot of my life was like built out of like survival to get to the next place. Like my drive, my like tunnel vision of like, I gotta be better, I gotta achieve this was off the strengths of like, I wanna make a better life for us.
If You Knew Better brings real talk from women who've lived it, unpacking career pivots, relationship lessons, and the mindset shifts that changed everything. Listen to If You Knew Better with Amber Grimes on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Usually on This Podcast Will Kill You, we talk about the diseases, infections, and biological threats that can make us really sick.
But right now, we're doing something a little different.
We're stepping back and looking at what the human body needs to keep going.
When you consider what we know about sleep in humans, there's one rule that comes out. We are predictably unpredictable sleepers.
We're talking about why sleep works the way it does, why our bodies don't follow neat rules, and why modern life makes rest so hard to come by.
The second half of our series takes us to the digestive system with a multi-part series on what happens after we eat. Okay, I just have to say that all of my favorite words apparently are digestive words.
Sphincter, peristalsis, duodenum. It's fascinating, it's funny, and it matters so much more than you think.
Episodes of our new series run from January 20th through February 17th, with new episodes every Tuesday on the Exactly Right Network.
Listen to This Podcast Will Kill You as part of the Exactly Right Network on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
We're back. So, the new Shah also put a violent end to what had at that point been some 80 years of increasing press freedom. Over the course of his reign, he grows increasingly obsessed with the way Mustafa Kemal is doing things over in Turkey. Aping him, Reza bans traditional clothing. It was now illegal for Iranians to wear anything but Western dress. Now, this is something that gets missed a lot when you see conservatives or other people post pictures of Iranian women in headscarves next to old photos of the second Shah in this line of like women during the reign of that Shah in Tehran dressed like Westerners, right? Looking like women in Western cities, right? And it's always framed as like, and it is fucked up that people don't have like freedom to choose what they wear on their head. But what is not talked about is how those pictures came to be. And so I want to read you a quote from Alavi and Singh's article about why you have those pictures of women without headscarves in Tehran. If they did not do so, give up their traditional dress, they were beaten and even taken into custody. This policy caused a massive rupture with tradition. In small towns and villages, people ignored the Shah's edict. In cities, people suffered, especially the women. Many women stopped going to public places to avoid harassment and became involuntary prisoners within their own homes. This is not a nice process. He's not freeing people. So he's saying you'll be beaten if you do this thing that you've been doing your whole life still.
This is the point where I have to say two things. There's two things I have to mention. One, and this is for all the aunties out there who might be listening or hear this episode. Please no angry emails. We can accept two truths are happening or have happened, which is one, the Shahs were repressive and fascist, and also the mullahs are repressive and fascist. And I would argue they're worse, and I would say most Iranians would say it's worse, but it doesn't mean that what they were doing was good.
This is not a nice time.
It was not a nice time, and also it probably led long-term to some of the conflicts that we had down the road with the mullahs and that fascist, Islamo-fascist regime. Another thing I will have you note, when this meme was popularized, where it's like they show like the picture of like the women, like this was Iran in the 70s and now look, they're animals, sort of. Always has a weird vibe to it. I posted one of my more popular tweets when I was on X or Twitter was a picture of John Travolta in Saturday Night Fever, and it was him dancing with the full-on dance thing you can imagine, where he's like on the dance floor, it's all lit up. And I said, this is an actual picture of my father in pre-revolutionary Iran dancing. And to be fair, it does kind of look like my dad. And it does look like the kind of dancing he would do. It looks extraordinarily Persian. In fact, there's never been a more Persian-coded picture than John Travolta dancing in that. And it was very popular. And up to everyone who thought that was real, I apologize. I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's important to know that, like, again, there are much better ways to, it's bad to tell people they have to or can't wear a certain thing. You can do that without saying it's now illegal to wear what you were wearing before, and you'll get beaten in the street if you do it. The Shah could have just said, you don't have to dress like the clerics want you to anymore. Do whatever. And doing that also probably would have caused a lot less of the kind of resentment that builds up in Like it's just he's a dick about everything. Exactly. He's a huge asshole. Exactly. That's Reza Shah, basically. So Iran does modernize a lot during Reza's time in power, and early in his reign, there are other people who are doing hard work and good work, who are like competent political figures and allies who he's able to entrust to execute and create policy, right? And this is part of why there's a lot of development in the country. Each of these men, though, grows too powerful and popular for Reza's liking. He is not a guy who is good at trusting. The Encyclopedia of the World of Islam notes, they were gradually eliminated from the political arena, and most of them were murdered humiliatingly at his behest. So, not a great dude to work for.
God, I don't like that sentence, murdered humiliatingly. No. That is very haunting.
That sounds bleak. Yeah.
Horrible.
Oh. I mean, he likes cauterizing stuff, so we know that there's some fucked up shit going on here. By 1931 or so, the Shah is about as close to a total despot as one could be. But as cruel as he was to his own people, he was deeply aware of how fragile his hold on power remained. He had seen in action how little effort it took the British to help him onto his throne. Over the years, though, he'd also grown increasingly paranoid about their plots. At the same time, he was terrified of the USSR, and he actually gives the Soviet Union a big chunk of what's today Turkmenistan in 1933 to try and buy them off and keep them happy. And he does the same to British oil interests. He gives them, concedes a bunch of Iranian soil. He does this a few times, and I think he does this to Turkey as well. He gives away a sizable chunk of his country in order to preserve his reign and try to, make friends with these foreign powers that he's hoping will help keep him on his throne. Yeah. And this obviously pisses people off. He's literally giving away the country. Public authorities and the media were ordered to describe the Shah as a reformer who had modernized the country. He was given credit for reforms instituted by other past leaders, like Amir Kabir, while his secret police punished anyone who spoke out about the darker side of the regime. Per Shireen Brisick, Reza Shah's whim was absolute, his memory extraordinary, his thirst to avenge proverbial, his skin gossamer. No elective constitutional system was allowed to grow roots under the Pahlavis, another break from Ataturk's example. To the untraveled Shah, the concept of a free press was unfathomable. When Reza discovered that Iranians were still using postage stamps bearing the portrait of the deposed Ahmad Shah, he sent his troops to seize the entire supply. For some weeks, Iran remained stampless, and since the newly minted ones with Reza's portrait were slow in arriving from Holland, the old stamps had to be retrieved and circulated, albeit with the exiled Shah's effigy blacked out.
That's so funny. That's like
bit.
Somebody had to go through each one of those stamps and just write it out.
Yeah.
Millions.
He just had a temper tantrum. He's like, the stamps! Confiscate them all! And they're like, well, no one can use the mail. hey, boss, we got kind of a problem here. And he's like, you got Sharpies, don't you?
Wow.
Yeah.
And I'll have you note, this is the corner of the show in which I talk about Persian contributions to the world, the postal system. You like the postal service? Persians came up with that. You like that?
I love
it. Something that's our thing. It's one of our things.
And he fucked it up.
It's our thing, man. And you fucked it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's been your thing for a while.
Yeah.
So when the Great Depression hits, oil revenues from Great Britain dry up sharply. Again, the British are nominally supposed to pay quite a bit to Iran for the oil that they take out, but during World War I, they stopped paying because they're like, why would we pay? Times are hard. And during Great Depression, oil revenues also dry up sharply. And they're finding ways to fuck with them. They're still selling oil. They are often lying to the government. Because again, AIPAC has never cared about the government in Tehran. So they're like, the government in Tehran doesn't usually know what the British Navy's paying for oil, right? Like that's all kept in a black box from them. So this pisses off the Shah. There's years of ongoing arguments with the Shah and renegotiations of that contract with Darcy, where the Shah's like, you're fucking us. And they are. The Shah's not wrong. He's being fucked here. So it is still AIPAC, the Anglo-Persian oil company. At the time, though, it will eventually be renamed, as you noted, the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, or AIOC. And just in case you're all curious, it's renamed one more time, and it still exists today. Kava, do you know what AIPAC/AIOC is today? I bet you do.
Famously known for taking care of the environment, they are now known as BP.
Wonderful company.
British Petroleum.
British Petroleum. That's right, baby. That's these motherfuckers.
They were bad from the beginning. It's so funny.
They were always evil as fuck.
Even when they weren't killing ducks and stuff.
No. There's never been a leader of that company who didn't deserve to be flung into the sun.
Absolutely.
So the fact that Great Britain's fucking him and that the oil company's fucking him really wears on Reza. And resentment over this builds at the same time as an awful lot. So in the 20s up to the 30s, he's getting increasingly angry at Great Britain and increasingly paranoid at Great Britain. And at the same time, a lot of Germans start coming to Iran, and a lot of tourists come, and a lot of vacationers, but also a lot of businesses, German investors.
These kebabs you have, we're going to look into this kebab business you have
very
here.
Good. Yeah. Oh no, do not very German regime.
You love it.
Very nice. Then, a guy gets elected in the 30s who's not as nice, but who Reza Shah finds himself actually in agreement with a lot. That guy's name is Adolf Hitler. And Reza Shah's like, this Hitler guy, He's saying a lot I agree with about how the British are evil and untrustworthy. He's saying a lot of other things that Reza agrees with too. Stuff on genocide that Reza might not be against. And Germany, this is actually one of the most successful, like, German... it's a mix of like a spying and like an economic influence effort that like the Nazi regime like carries out over this period of time, which is that by 1940, nearly half of all Iranian imports come from the German Reich, and 42% of all Iranian exports are entering Germany. So by the time World War II starts, Germany is kind of more important for the Iranian economy in a lot of ways than Great Britain is. Yeah. And Reza Shah has come to believe that, like, well, I've got these Germans who are good allies, right? Like these guys will be good friends to me. And he hates Britain and Russia, both pretty much the same at this point in time. And he kind of, at the start of World War II, he makes a bet that, like, I bet Hitler's going to win. I bet things are going to keep going well for Adolf Hitler.
Yeah.
This goes wrong for him almost immediately. First off, he's shocked at the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact in 1939 that, like, the Soviet Union and the Nazis have a detente and invade Poland together, because he's like, wait, but I don't like Russia. I thought that we were on the same page about that Germany, right? And when World War II starts, he's like, Iran's neutral. Trust me, neutral. We're not siding with the Germans here, but when the Germans invade the USSR, that makes Russia and Great Britain allies, and the British are increasingly unhappy with this guy who seemed very sympathetic to Hitler being on the throne. Yeah. And to make a long story short, the Shah is forced to abdicate. He tells his son, I cannot be, and this is because, like, Russia and Britain, like, or primarily Britain, like, send soldiers into Persia, right? They basically take the country because they need the oil for the war that they're fighting with the Third Reich, and they don't want this guy who's untrustworthy to be able to cut off the Royal Navy's fuel supply, right? This is part of why there's a conference in Tehran during World War II, the Tehran Conference. It's a big deal. And the Shah, Reza is not a fan of any of this. He abdicates, telling his son, I cannot be the nominal head of an occupied land to be dictated to by a minor English or Russian officer. His son, who's 21 years old at this time, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, is immediately proclaimed Shah by the Majlis right after this. That's more or less the end of this guy's story. Reza, the former Shah, gets put onto a British boat. He goes to Mauritius first in the Indian Ocean, but he doesn't like the climate, and he eventually is taken to Johannesburg, South Africa, where he stays under house arrest, dying from a heart attack in 1944. And that's the end of his life.
Anyway. That's fascinating. First of all, when I heard that we were doing the Shah, I had the wrong Shah in mind. So this is fascinating, because this is the Shah I know the least about. So that's really interesting to get all this background.
I thought this was all going to be the first, like, 2 pages of a script on the other Shah. I was like, this is just the context we need. And I just found it so interesting and worth telling. And especially once I hit the fucking Great Persian Famine, I was like, well, shit, this, like, I need to refocus these episodes.
No, absolutely. And I do think it's so important because it lays out the groundwork for what happens next. Yeah. Really importantly. And it makes it so much easier to understand what happens next. I was under the impression that he had flirted with the Nazis just because he hated the British so much. Yeah. But I didn't realize he was quite so sympathetic. And it sounds like the Allies had their fears, which may or may not have been grounded, but makes sense as to why they went in and deposed him. Yeah. It's always weird to me, that dynamic, like, because what is that? I mean, as the son, how do you stay behind? That's just so weird. I guess you have to. You feel like it's your duty in the best case scenario.
You get to be the king. Your dad's never been that great. You're 21. Probably always figured you could do a better job.
I mean, I'm curious because at this time, I think the 21-year-old Mohammad Reza Shah, the son, was just out there in, like, Europe, hanging out, like, with, like, B-grade celebrities and actresses and partying hard. So I'm curious to know where he was at in this stage in his life, but we'll have to get to it at some other point. 3 more episodes, please.
Yeah, don't worry. We will, friends. We will. But we're not going to do that today. Today, we're going to do something else. We're going to end the episode with you plugging your pluggables.
Wow, beautiful.
You're very good at this. So if you like this show, I think there's a very good chance you're going to like my podcast, The House of Pod. It is a humor-adjacent medical podcast. I have on a rotating crew of co-hosts, and I try to mix up medical expertise and people who are just fun and I like to be around, like Robert and Sophie, for example. And we'll talk about important medical topics. We'll talk about medical grifters. And, you know, I guarantee you it's more fun than it sounds. So check out The House of Pod anywhere you get your podcasts. Our most recent episodes include influence versus evidence, which is a lot of what we talked about earlier today. It's a lot of looking at how we decide what happens in our healthcare now and how we're drifting away from evidence. So anyways, you'll like it. I promise.
Well, everybody, that's been Behind the Bastards for this week. Check back next week. We'll talk about someone else who sucked. You know? Someone different.
Behind the Bastards is a production of Cool Zone Media. For more from Cool Zone Media, visit our website, coolzonemedia.com, or check us out on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Full video episodes of Behind the Bastards are now streaming on Netflix, dropping every Tuesday and Thursday. Hit Remind Me on Netflix so you don't miss an episode. For clips and our older episode catalog, continue to subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@BehindTheBastards. We love about 40% of you, statistically speaking.
A BetterHelp ad. International Women's Day is this March, and it's a chance to celebrate women in all their brilliance. The leaders, the caregivers, the problem solvers, the hype friends, the quiet forces, the how-do-you-do-it-all types. Answer? With a lot of strength and usually very little rest. Therapy can be one way to support the incredible work you already do. A space just for you to reflect, reset, and reconnect with what fuels you. Your goals, your boundaries, your joy. BetterHelp makes starting therapy simple by matching you with a qualified therapist based on your needs and preferences. No pressure, no guesswork. And if your first match isn't quite right, you can switch anytime. Here's to celebrating women and giving yourself support along the way. Visit BetterHelp.com for 10% off. That's BetterHelp.com.
Peace to the planet, Charlemagne the God here, and listen, we are back. The Black Effect Podcast Festival is back in Atlanta on April 25th at Pullman Yard. Yeah. And the full lineup is nuts. We got the Grits and Eggs podcast, Deontay Kyle and Big Ice Cup Cat. We got Club 520 with Jeff Teague and the gang. Yeah. Don't Call Me White Girl. Mona will be there. Keep It Positive, Sweetie with Crystal Renee. We got Reality with the King with Carlos King. And yes, Drink Champs will be in the building. Okay. Plus, you know we're going to have a lot of guests, so you need to join us. And we got the Black Effect Marketplace, the Picture Podcast, and everything you expect from the Black Effect Podcast Festival. Tickets are on sale right now. Go get yours at blackeffect.com/podcast festival. Don't play yourself, okay? Pull up.
Then she says, have you seen a photo of my son? And I'm like, who is this person?
Welcome to the Boys and Girls Podcast. Arranged marriage is basically a reality show, and you're auditioning for your soulmate. And who's judging? Only your entire family. I sacrificed myself to this ancient tradition, hoping to find love the right way. And instead, I found chaos, comedy, and a lot of cringe. Listen to Boys and Girls on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Bob Pittman, Chairman and CEO of iHeartMedia, and I'm kicking off a brand new season of my podcast, Math and Magic, Stories from the Frontiers of Marketing. Math and Magic takes you behind the scenes of the biggest businesses and industries while sharing insights from the smartest minds in marketing. Coming up this season on Math and Magic, CEO of Liquid Death, Mike Cesario.
People think that creative ideas are like these light bulb moments that happen when you're in the shower, where it's really like a stone sculpture. You're constantly just chipping away and refining.
Take-Two Interactive CEO, Strauss Zelnick, and our own Chief Business Officer, Lisa Coffey. Listen to Math and Magic on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed Human.